Welcome back everyone to another Kerbal Space Program video, and today's video is going to be focused on the beginning of the Duna colony on my main save file. So this mission, you can see here that I'm starting the construction of the rover, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this rover down first so we can find a good location for the colony, and then once we find a location that I like or that any of you will suggest a different location, we can start sending up different modules. I might not send something up every week, probably every so often, but as of now, that's the plan. But anyway, before we begin, if you guys are liking the content that I'm producing, and if you like this video, smash the like button and subscribe. But yeah, let's just keep going with the video. So right now you can see I'm constructing the rover, and I put some batteries in there and a a reaction wheel in case we flip to help write it, and there's also some external command seats in there. But this mission, we're not going to send up any Kerbals. We're just going to send up the rover for now. But yeah, so here I'm just testing everything, testing the solar panels, seeing how much electric charge we have and how much it'll last us. And you can see there we flipped, and that reaction wheel helped us right ourselves again. And I'm putting some antennas, but you'll see later in the video that we would actually need something a lot more powerful, because we actually get there, everything is working perfectly, and then once we land, we don't actually have any connection to the KSP to help control the rover. So we might have to do something about that in a future video. But yeah, so there's a rover construction finished. Now I'm working on the construction of the actual rocket. So here what I'm doing is I'm trying to figure out how I can put this inside of a fairing to kind of protect it, better from when we're entering the atmosphere and everything. I kind of used the offset tool I used the offset tool very liberally throughout this whole build. Probably like not how you're supposed to do it, quote unquote. But yeah, you can see that heat shield wasn't attached to anything except for the fairing. But yeah, I actually really like this part of it. It was really interesting to build. What I did was I got some of those cubic octagonal struts, and basically I'm placing those down on the long side of the fairing and placing some landing gear. So when we're about to land on Duna's surface, we can just deploy the fairing and deploy the heat shield and extend those landing legs, and it'll help us get a little more cushion, and it'll be a little bit softer of a landing when we land. So you can see here, so if you notice right there, I actually have the skipper engine, and that's just because for now I'm just launching this and testing how it would actually work. But in the actual mission, or in the actual rocket that we're going to use, I'm actually going to use 2 nuclear engines for the main part of the rocket that's going to propel this most of the way to Duna. But yeah, you can see there I was cutting most of the parachutes down just because Kerbin's atmosphere is much thicker than Duna's, so we wouldn't need as many parachutes, and I just wanted to see if I would be able to like land and detach and everything. So you can see here that I'm taking some. I took that fairing piece and I put the interstage nodes on, which allows me to kind of like store some batteries and a probe core inside there, because we're not actually going to be controlling the rocket through the rover because it's upside down. We're going to be controlling it through a separate probe core, and I just wanted to make sure that it would be as aerodynamic as possible, right? So we're just going to keep it like that. And then, like I was saying before, we have those 2 nuclear engines, and we're going to get an adapter piece there so we can change it to the 2.5 meter diameter, I think. Hopefully I don't mess it up like last video. So there's the fairing construction, and now we're moving on to the lower stages. So this is fairly simple. We have a Rhino stage and a Mammoth stage, very powerful engines just to help us get into orbit. And then here I'm just doing some final checking with the stages. And then I actually forgot to put a decoupler there. So once we actually got to Duna, we wouldn't have been able to deploy the parachutes, and that would have not been good. And here I'm just tightening the the rocket Duna Colony rover, and yeah, so now we're moving on to the launch. So the launch, the ascent profile about this was a bit tricky because it was really top heavy, and I've actually tried it multiple times before this. This is not the first attempt. It's very top heavy, so if I were to angle forward too much, it would have flipped over. So it was kind of wonky and it wasn't the most efficient, but we had enough fuel to brute force our way through it. And actually, talking about fails, this mission had a bunch of fails. There were times where I don't know what happened, like the save file glitched, and when I went to launch the rover the next day, I got all the way to Duna and the decoupler wouldn't work. So that's why you might notice some differences in the upper stages of the rocket. All right, so now just getting our way into orbit. Yeah, there's that mammoth stage is gone now, so we're just going to use that Rhino to help us get the rest of the way, and we're in orbit around Kerbal. So there, what I was doing is I need to get into a transfer window to Duna, and that's basically so that we can make it into Duna's sphere of influence the most efficient way. And for those of you who don't know, the transfer window to Duna is if you were to draw like a line from Duna, then to the sun, then to Kerbal, the angle that line would form at the sun would be roughly 45 degrees. I think more accurately, I think it's like 44.4 or something. I'm not exactly sure, but that's what I was doing there. So yeah, and then right here we're just burning to complete the maneuver node, and you can see that when I'm doing this burn, I messed something wrong. I messed something up, and that line didn't go where we planned it. But that's fine, because what I like to do is I like to get us at least in our sphere of influence of Duna, and then place a maneuver node farther along the our path, just to make sure that we get it as close to Duna as possible. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing now. And then what I realized is we don't actually have that much fuel left in the Rhino stage. I can't really read. I think we have like 100 meters per second left. So what I'm doing is I made a maneuver node that's going to actually put us on a collision course with Duna. And the reason for that is I did that, then I detached the Rhino stage, and then we're going to do another maneuver that's going to put us in the right trajectory. So now that Rhino stage will just crash into Duna's surface, but we will be able to orbit safely around it. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing now. I'm just adjusting our orbit. I like Duna's atmosphere starts at 60 kilometers above the surface. So I like to aim for an orbit of about 80 kilometers or 70 kilometers. Anywhere from there, I would say, is fine. Unless you're doing like a space station or a satellite, those can be much higher up. But since we're going to be landing, we want it to be closer. Okay. Now I'm just time warping, and we have about 6 days until we get there. But we have time warp, so it won't take that long. So yeah, now there's our maneuver, and that's done. And what you might have noticed before is I was changing the thrust limiter on the nuclear engines because our burn was estimated to take like I think 0.1 seconds, and that's really hard to gauge and like just do max throttle and then cut it at the right time. So what you can do is you can just change the thrust limiter, which is gonna make your burn time take longer, but it's gonna be more accurate. All right, so here we are just circularizing at Duna, and what I'm doing now is I'm actually doing multiple burns at periapsis. So you see I'm doing one burn that's just going to get us circularized in a really wide orbit. So now we can just do a second burn, but at the time what I didn't know is that if you look at the maneuver node, we actually don't even have enough to bring our orbit down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to the apoapsis and bring it down from there, because our periapsis is much closer to Duna's surface than the apoapsis. So I'm just going to bring it down so we have an encounter with the atmosphere, and then that will do enough slowing down for us. Okay, and there we go. So now I believe I set that to about 20 kilometers above the surface. So now we're just time warping down. I want to be careful because if we just time warped past it, we would have had an Ike encounter, and that would have just flung us out of Duna's sphere of influence. But yeah, right now what I'm doing is I'm just closing all of that not scientific equipment, the solar panels and the satellite dishes, the communitrons. So even though that's going to crash into Duna's surface, but we don't need it anymore, so I'm just going to close it. And then here, we didn't really need that heat shield, but it was there just in case. And you can see it's a little lopsided because I was having some glitching with the save files. But we can just ditch it for now and deploy the fairing and all of our parachutes. So now it's just coming down and landing, and those landing gear did their job perfectly. And here's what I was saying before is we actually didn't have a connection to the KSC to control this. So this rover is pretty much just like stranded there for now. But maybe in the next video for the Duna colony, we can send up a satellite into orbit around Duna, just to even help the colony transmit data. But that was the whole video. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any suggestions for future videos, always leave them in the comments. Any questions, leave them in the comments. And yeah, just look out for the next video. And my upload schedule, I've decided is going to be on, is going to be every Sunday. So just be prepared every Sunday for a new upload. All right, see you in the next one.